you guys. Thank you guys so much for sharing. And I saw that that came up a few times about hybrid. And as I was thinking through this, I was thinking there's so many things that hybrid could mean. So to begin with, it could have been our AB day and online students. That was hybrid. But now we're talking about hybrid is that you have those two groups of kids and you're meeting with them synchronously at the same time, and that learning is repetitive. I'm sorry, yes. I mean, is linear and not repetitive. So we're not doing what we did on Monday again on Tuesday. Each day we can add something new because we're meeting with our kids at the same time. So if you have tuned in with us in the past 3 Fridays, we have been taking a standard, and for this it has been a 3rd grade math standard on telling and writing time, and then using that to solve addition and subtraction word problems. So if you're not 3rd grade math, it's okay. Any standard can be plugged in, but we wanted to take something that someone was teaching and we modeled that with direct instruction. So you saw Nicole, she used words like roomies and zoomies, so people knew who they were, but we had those people, just like you guys have, they've been in class with us at the same time during direct instruction. And so today we're going to talk about, Karen and I are here with you. We're going to talk to you about what independent practice can look like with this class live simulation. And remember, Jake and Sam last week said, hey, you can also do this small group guided practice. This stuff can go on while your kids are working independently. So if you missed that, make sure you go check out our YouTube channel. And Karen's going to add that to the chat for us so you can find those videos and go back over what it looked like, as well as some management strategies for those on our YouTube channel. So again, we're going to be talking about independent practice during this hybrid situation. So what do we mean when we say independent practice? Okay, when we're saying independent practice, we're talking about when we're asking students to work with little or no assistance. And sometimes that is scary. Like, we know our kids need us sometime, but they also need to have a little bit of a productive struggle, right? So they need to have a chance, if they just got this new skill, they need a chance to use that. And it's okay to make a mistake or fail. That's where the learning happens. So that productive struggle where they're working a little bit, they got to reinforce those skills that they had or put their new skills to work and see where they're making mistakes. And that's where you come in to help them while they're working independently. So that's why, as we've modeled this, we had you guys together. We had students in class and remote students for our whole group, direct instruction. And then today we are doing independent practice where kids will be left by themselves, but remember, teachers can still pull small groups to help those kids on their independent practice, if that makes sense. So again, if you've missed the last 2 Fridays, make sure you go check out our YouTube channel where we've got those videos to really help you take a bite out of this. So today, independent practice, what does that look like with our hybrid students? Some in class, some at home. Oh, yes. And then how we're going to use our learning management system to help this. So now I'm going to stop for a moment. And today we're going to be primarily focused on our Chromebook users. So we're going to be talking about Canvas and GoGuardian. So iPad teachers, pre-K1 teachers, we didn't forget about you. We are going to throw a link in the chat, and we're asking that you go ahead and register in that course. That's going to help you guys get ready for JAMF Teacher. So you guys work on that this week and come back and meet with us next Friday. We're going to talk about independent practice with our littles on iPads and JAMF Teacher. So, I mean, you're more than welcome to hang out if you want to see how this works on Chromebooks, but get that course, enroll, and that way you're ready to go Friday when we talk about how this looks with our littles and iPads. So Chromebook people, we're going to be talking about how we use Canvas. How do you use your learning management system to help you with this independent practice? And really what we're encouraging is that if you can have your content and instructions and assignments in Canvas, that way your face-to-face and online students can have access to that. It will be super helpful for all of those kids and you. So let's talk about a little bit about how this would be laid out in Canvas, right? So this would be your module, right? It's a screenshot of your module, and you see that you can add, so what's highlighted in green, that's a text header. I'll show you guys that in a moment. So this is where I can add my direct instruction. Those pages can be made or made as you go along. So whatever I meet with my direct instruction on Monday, I can add those learning targets or goals. I can add text and videos or audio. Whatever we talk about during direct instruction, I can keep publishing a page Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and that pops up underneath direct instruction. And then you see independent practice there labeled. Right, so independent practice is where, I mean, you guys are doing that. You're having your kids work in Canvas, and that's where they're turning in their products, right? So this, we're talking about our Miss the Bus activity. That is an assignment that is going to tell me if my kids know this elapsed time standard. So that's the student product. You guys already have that stuff in Canvas. So one thing that you may want to consider is looking into mastery paths. Now, I want you to know you do not have to do mastery paths to be successful with independent practice. But I just couldn't build this without sharing this information with you guys, because what's so great about mastery paths is that it has this pre-assessment. And so this pre-assessment has 5 questions. All 5 of those questions are aligned to that one learning target. That way, as kids miss, so this first group here of purple, if they get 1 to 2 questions right out of the 5, they go down this path to get the support that they need. If they get 3 to 4 questions right, they're going to go down this middle path to get the support they need. And if they get all questions right, then they get other strategies. But at the end of that path, all students have to complete the Miss the Bus product. So mastery paths, if you're thinking about ways to scaffold or support your learning, you can build that into your Canvas module. You don't have to. It's not mandatory, and it's not the only way independent practice could work. But it was just so cool that I wanted you guys to really think about what that could look like. And then also, don't forget, Jake and Sam showed us last week that you can also post your guided practice materials. So let's say on Tuesday that I want to pull groups as they're working in their mastery path. Now I can post materials for A, B, and C groups, and that way it's also in Canvas as I pull my students. So tons of ways this could be laid out. This is how it worked in our brains. It's not saying that this is the only way, but it's just trying to show you some different things. And essentially remember that your content, instructions, and assignments are in Canvas. That way, as students are working independently, they can go look for help. I also want to stop here, and I don't want you to think that I've heard people say, like, when my kids are face-to-face with me, I don't want them on my device. Some say period, some say the whole time. I also want you to know that's not what we're saying either. We are saying, like, if you want to give your students, if you want to print paper for them to work on, a hard copy, absolutely do that. But then also encourage them, like if they need help with that or need to refer back to something, they've got the content. You don't have them saying, what did you say that we need to do with this again? They can go look right in Canvas and see those instructions without having to ask you that. So that's how having that stuff in your LMS can really help you clear up communication problems and students asking questions. So we're going to pause for a second. This is that quiz that we were just looking at. So I want to go back to the module real quick, and let's go back through that layout. So I want you to see here, this we can't click on. This is a text header. So this is one way that you can lay out your module to help direct kids where to go. So we're in this direct instruction, right? They can't click on that, but you can add pages underneath and publish those each day. And I want to real quickly go through this mastery path here. So it is really important when you design this pre-assessment, and I'm not going to go into how it's made. Karen's going to add this in the chat. Jake did a wonderful PD on this, on how to set this up. So we're not going to dive into that today. You can go check out his, but I do want you to know, like, the thought process behind it, right? So in this pre-assessment, I've got 5 questions, and I had to write these questions in a way that when kids miss them, it was going to send them down a path that would support them where they are. So let's check out these questions really quick, right? So in our standard, we're talking about telling time, writing time, and then solving addition and subtraction word problems with time. So I tried to build these questions to help me see where they needed support. So I did a really basic, what time is it? They type in the answer, okay? Then we say, what time is it in 15 minutes? Because now I know they can tell time and add the 15 minutes, another text box, right? And so I'm trying to also assume a little bit that if my kids get, these are the basic questions, so they should at least get these right. If they get these 2 right, they're going to go get support on strategies to solve the word problems. But if they don't get even these right, that's what that first group is. That's got to help them a little bit more, maybe a little bit more guidance, because they've also missed these before they got to the word problems. So how you design your questions will also determine your paths. So let me jump into the editing of the quiz. Right, so we just went through our questions and then our mastery path, right? So I'm saying that if kids miss the first 2 questions, they're going to get help with these projects. And everybody has to still meet the same product. So I want you to notice that for this, and I didn't want to go too much into how it was designed, because you will design this how your students need help. And like this standard has 10 days in it. So this mastery path would really be longer, but you would design it the way that you think your kids need support. But in my mind, all of our kids needed vocab, some type of vocab work where they interacted with those terms. So what I have is my low group and my high group. They're going to be working on a crowdsourced document. It's a Frayer model. So my upper group is going to be adding the sentences to that, and my lower group is going to be adding the images, but they're working together to complete this vocab Frayer model. My middle group has more students in it, so I've got them working to complete the whole Frayer model together in that middle group. Then my next strategy for my lower kids, it was on, I'm going to help them. I'm going to use a part of that product and I'm going to model the number line strategy, right? My middle group, I want them to explore, there's more than just a number line. So I want them to explore multiple strategies and pick the one they want. And then my higher group, they got everything right. So I'm going to go ahead and use them to help me create some posters that I can share in Canvas. So many ways that these paths can be designed. Just depending on how you developed your quiz and what that's going to tell you about your students. One more thing I'd like for you to see before we move on is that after your kids take that pre-assessment, it tells you the students that are in each group. So if you want to pull your small groups by that, it tells you your students there, or if you're going in and seeing their work, you always can pull them for different reasons or one-on-one conferences, but it's really nice that it tells you which kids are down each path. And one other strategy you can consider, Nicole and I were discussing the other day, so you have your mastery paths here, but even when she did her direct instruction on Monday, she had you guys complete a graphic organizer. You can always have assignments built in at the bottom of direct instruction where kids have to submit the graphic organizer or whatever you guys were having them work on during their direct instruction. So many different ways you can set up your Canvas module. Feel free to reach out to CNI, reach out to us. We'll be happy to plan some things and help you set this up. So feel free to reach out anytime if you'd like support or a brainstorming buddy as you try this. So now let's jump into management and strategies. Now we're talking specifically about managing independent practice, right? So we're saying you have whole group with your students, and then you release your students for independent practice. Independent is little to no assistance from you. So you have your kids in class, they are gonna be raising their hands when they need help like they always did. So we have to have a way to monitor and help our online students. And you also don't want that to become so overwhelming on you as you're trying to also meet the needs of the students in class. So let's talk about some strategies to how this can work. Right, the first thing I would encourage is set up GoGuardian. Set up your class in there because GoGuardian allows you to see your students' screens, get a timeline of how they're spending their time, chat with students. So when you think about how do my remote students, like if they have questions, they can chat with you on there, or you can call your students to meet with you during this independent practice. You can do one-on-one conferences or group conferences. So let me scroll down here. I want to kind of show you some of these GoGuardian features here. Okay, so this is our chat feature. Couple of screens here. So this is kind of the overall dashboard that a teacher sees. And then when I click on my student screen, it allows me to click the chat and I can send them a message. So I want you to see that the student's chat icon over here on the left-hand side is green. Yours as the teacher, you have a blue chat icon, right? So you can send that student a message, or that student can click there and message you. And you can see on this right-hand side what it looks like when they're asking you a question. So this one was saying, where do I find, what video is it? And I'm letting them know, go check in Canvas. Remember that video is posted in our direct instruction page, right? So they can always use GoGuardian to chat with you. Also that timeline. in Go Guardian, how kids are spending their time when they're at home. So some of these, like for this, I was using Derek Shepherd, but I noticed after I took this screenshot, we've got a kid here in SchoolNet. Why are they in Google and then going back to SchoolNet? That tells me I might need to go check. They might be looking up some questions. So stuff like that, that timeline telling you how kids are spending their time. Even I have my off task alerts on. So when they spend more than a certain amount of time on a page that's not related to my content, it's very cool how it highlights that for you. And then remember that calling students. So remember we went through screens, timelines. If you click call students, you can call one, or you can do a group of students. So Go Guardian is a wonderful way to manage your students. And remember, if you're doing whole group, you might would use the Zoom chat, but we're encouraging letting those students go for independent practice. And if they have help, set up ways for them to get in touch with you. So that's a good way. Go Guardian can be used to monitor really in class and your at home students. Then let's talk a little bit about your lesson and assignment design. Those clear instructions are going to be a lifesaver. When you don't want kids asking you, what did you say? Where does it go? That clear instructions in there for your roomies and your zoomies. Nicole did a wonderful job. Even on her slide deck, it had icons to let kids know what roomies and zoomies were doing. How are you asking questions? So in independent practice, that practice still has to carry over. So I took a screenshot. This is from one of the mastery paths, right? So they're working on their math problem. And actually, you see right here, I've got even a little bit of what might be considered guided practice because I've recorded myself helping them answer number one, and then they are answering number two. And you see here, my roomies are doing this on paper. And I want them to turn that work in at the end. But one thing I would say, have them take a picture and still upload it. I mean, if you have not ever had the conversation with a student that you lost that student's work, just know it's coming. I don't feel like you can go through education and not get blamed for losing work at least once. But if they take that picture for documentation, you can always leave feedback there. But if you want to go pull that hard copy, just let your roomies know, turn that in whatever bin they're supposed to, right? So those clear instructions of what to do or where that work goes, and then also add audio or video support. So whether it's you working out a problem or a YouTube video of someone else showing a strategy, you can record audio, right? If you just are adding instructions and you know that maybe you have some kids who struggle reading, add in some audio of you reading the instructions to them if that's the support that your students need. And then when you're ready, give mastery paths a try. When you want to, it helps you scaffold that learning using that pre-assessment to send kids down a path and everybody's doing that same product at the end. And then lastly, set up your protocols, right? So how are kids going to ask questions, especially those remote students? So we've talked about Go Guardian chat, or I've seen a teacher, she said that she has in her Canvas, she has a discussion that stays open, and as kids struggle with whatever it is or need help, they put it in there, and that actually allows students to respond or the teacher when she sees it, okay? But remember, we said we want you to be able to balance this. You don't want your Zoomies to take away from your roomies, right? You don't want to be so tied to your computer taking these questions that you miss the ones that are with you. So one teacher at Rockfish, and I apologize if she's on with this, and I can see her face, but I don't recall her name. She had a wonderful idea. She said, after I do this whole group synchronous time, I'm going to release my in-class students to start their independent practice. And then I'm going to take my computer to my small group and I'm going to stay on with my Zoomies. I'm going to stay on a few more moments to make sure they all know where to go, clear up any questions with them, and then I will release them to do independent practice. I thought that was genius. I was like, duh. So thank you for sharing that. And that's just, I mean, that just makes so much sense. And then one other thing Karen and I were talking about is give kids a solid 10 to 15 minutes to really work by themselves. So after you release them for independent practice, let them be independent. No questions during that time. Let them have that productive struggle. And then after that time, you can have your Zoom back up. And if a kid at home is struggling, they can pop back in, or kids in class can raise their questions. But it kind of lets you reset. It kind of lets you get the materials you need, know if you're calling groups, and it lets kids have that productive struggle. So that's just some ideas on some protocols, some strategies or scheduling you can use. Again, there's no right or wrong, but whatever you do, make sure that's clearly communicated with your kids, and then you guys practice that. And then lastly, submitting assignments. All assignments do not have to be digital. We do not want kids on devices all the time, but it's nice to have that support there if they need to go back and rewatch a video or something. And it also, that has to be there for our online students, our HOL students. So why not utilize it to help all of that workflow, right? So as we've said, you can collect paper copies. I highly encourage it, but have them take a picture and document that this work is done. That way you still have something to refer back to. And Karen has shared with me before a great extension by Alice Keeler, that webcam snapshot, so that the paper, it does the right orientation, if that makes sense. So those are just some things to check out and try to help your independent practice, those protocols, clear instructions, and having a way that your kids at home can get in touch with you when they're having a hard time is going to be really key to you guys being successful. So we're going to take a moment and check the chat and kind of